In this video, I'll be checking out the CarTablet Pro Max CarPlay display that integrates Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as a dash cam at the rear of the display. Okay, so that's a quick summary of the CarTablet Pro Max. Let's open up the box and see what comes inside. Okay, so here's what you get inside the box. You get a paper instruction manual to tell you how to install it and use the display. You've got the display itself. We have two mounting options, one flat with an adhesive pad and one for windscreen mounting. We have a 12-volt adapter to USB-C to power the display. And we have a fairly long auxiliary cable for auxiliary audio output. And an additional option is the reversing camera. So you can attach this to the rear of your vehicle and attach the cable to the display to get a reversing camera feed directly on the display itself, if your car doesn't have that. Okay, looking over the display then, it is a 10.2 inch display, obviously narrower horizontal display, so it's not going to obstruct the over the dashboard too much. We've got the CarTablet branding on the chin of this display, not really even bezels, it's slightly chunky on the sides as it is on the longest edges of the display. We've got some ports on the left hand side of the display, none on the right hand side. There's a power button on the top there to wake and sleep the display. We've got mounting holes on the back here to mount both dashboard and windscreen displays on the back of. And here we have a camera module that we've seen fairly similarly in the past, which can also be adjusted so it can reach a little bit over and down over your dashboard a little bit better should you wish to need that. It does not rotate, but there is some rotation on the camera module itself, as well as some rotational tilt as well. Should you be sort of angling the display at an angle, you can rotate that to make a flatter image. And on the other side here, on the left hand side, we've got some I/O ports here. We've got USB-C to power the display. You've got AV in for the rear view camera, TF card slot for media playback, and we've got the auxiliary port here for auxiliary audio. Now before we go in the car, let's get this powered up, see how quickly it boots up, and just go over its main menu interface. So we've got the 12-volt adapter connected. We're going to plug this in and get it connected. Right, so into the main menu display. No chimes or bings or bongs, and we're into the main menu interface of the display. Slightly different to what we normally see, but it is very common with the side dock and the main panel of options. We've got a date and time here, a couple of shortcuts for AirPlay, Miracast and Bluetooth music. We've got the recording functionality for the dash cam, options to go to Android Auto and CarPlay. We've got some dots here, so that implies that you can swipe to get to the audio output options. Now again, you can tap here to go home from any of these options. You can adjust the volume quickly and as well as adjust the brightness. And at the bottom here, we've got an option to dive into the settings menu system. And from here, we can change the resolution. Not quite sure what that would be actually, probably the camera. And you've got 720p there, but it is a 4K dash camera, so I'm not quite sure what that is allowing us to do. There's no options. Recording time, you can loop record up to 5 minutes. You can have, not quite sure what recording is there. Oh, it's microphone recording, open and close, really should be on or off. We're recording the microphone. Auxiliary button, again, that is probably the floating button. We can have that on and off. We'll keep it on for now. And here we can flip the capture of video, should it be back to front. Screensaver mode on the actual display itself, we can have up to 3 minutes. We've got gravity sensing for the camera to capture and store any accidents or jolts in the car. It's going to start recording and save those. Driving position between left and right hand drive. CarPlay, we can have either go full screen or you can have it on a 60-40 ratio on the display. So we'll go full for now. And here's your reverse camera collaboration once you've got the rear camera set up. Choose your languages between a fair few of the most common languages. Here we can set the date and time of the actual clock itself. We can clear the connection history of any Bluetooth adapters that have been attached to it. Touch sounds on and off. It's currently default set to clock is off, and we can actually format any memory cards that we've got inserted into the display itself. And finally, scrolling down, we've got restore factory settings and also check the current firmware version. So that's the settings. AirPlay, we can go and we can also go into the various other options that we've got. Basically, they're going to trigger into their own modes once you actually select one of these options across the top. So you've got AirPlay and Miracast for iPhone and Android Auto. So depending on what you go into on this main menu, it's basically go to the same menu screen anyway and switch to that option. We've got the car recording option. Here is the dash cam, quite strong in its contrast, but obviously outside is going to behave a little bit differently. And here we can start and stop recording. We haven't got a TF card in there just yet. Lock the footage away, take a camera shot, play back your previously recorded footage, turn the microphone on and off, and then here we can swap. Doesn't do anything there. And once it's operational, that button should probably switch between modes. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the display. Let's jump in the car now and see how well this performs. So I'll see you there. Right, so we're in the Vauxhall Astra 2013 car. Just has its FM stereo and auxiliary, and that's pretty much it. We've got our CarTablet Pro Max here ready to get installed. And first of all, we need to look at how we're going to mount the display. Are we going to use a windscreen mount, or are we going to use a dash mount? Now, we've got a surface here, or we've got the surface up top here, or we've got the windscreen mount that could just be mounted on the windscreen. We've got our 12-volt auxiliary port down the bottom here to use for power. So here's the display. It's a 10-inch display, so it sits quite low profile. So even if it's mounted on the dashboard, it's not going to be that in the way. But if you wanted to, you could use adhesives and mount it a little bit lower down. But today I think we're going to just place it here for now. But the big issue is the dashboard camera. So we need to probably raise that up to its maximum extent. And we'll be checking this to see if that's going to be able to view over the dashboard whilst it's here, or whether we need to actually mount it on the top here. So we're going to go ahead with the flat mount first. This is the flat mount. You've got an adhesive plate that you can actually stick down on the surface or on the dashboard. And then what we could do, if we've got space, we could have it like that, or we could have it mounted up here. Again, we've got some rotation, but this mount is not flexible. If you were going to put it up here, I would possibly consider using the windscreen mount instead. So here's the 12-volt adapter. I would say the length of this cable forces you to have it running down the display. It hasn't got enough reach to go up and around. So I'd say that's one negative on this display. One positive is you got USB-A pass-through, so we can charge a wireless charger or directly connect your phone if you want to power your phone. I'm going to get this plugged into here, into our 12-volt socket down below here, and then we're going to supply the power by plugging it into the power on the side here. So we're just going to wait for that to fire up a bit. So that's the view of the dash cam fully up on its pivot at the top here. If I move that down, it's barely going to reach out over the dashboard there, unfortunately. So we can't really locate it here if we don't want to have that dash camera fully upwards. We could, that's not a problem. And it does give us a fairly good view over the top of the dash there. The only detriment is you can't see anything on that display. So personally, I'll probably have it mounted up on here. Then you can actually have that dash camera pointed downwards. There is some movement to the dash camera. You can rotate it left and right. So the alternative options is to use the windscreen mount. Now, we'll probably will have a go at doing that because that's going to bring the mount slightly off the dash. So I'm going to replace the mount for this one. I'm going to take that out. Attaches exactly the same. Goes into those grooves there and snaps upwards. The only detriment of mounting it this way is that this is going to block the camera from its view. So you can see here on the camera, if you mount it with an arm, that arm's going to be always in view. So you will need to sort of rotate it downwards and mount it on the actual dashboard itself. Right, so I'm going to take off the adhesive and then mount it onto this plate here. There's a little bit of curve, but what I'm planning on doing is resting this down on the actual mount itself. So even though we can rotate the display, we can actually rotate the camera back so it's facing outwards, which is also a good way of doing it too. And we're not blocking the radio display. We can probably reposition that power cable so it's a little bit out of reach and have that coming down the side here. Okay, so we've settled the general mounting and the positioning of the camera. We're using the windscreen mount on the dash. Ideally, you really want to position this on the actual surface so there's less weight coming off that mount. So going back then, here's the main menu interface. We've got the various options that are front and center that we've looked at in the earlier part of this video. We've got the volume obviously up to max. We've got the brightness up to max. So let's get this connected to CarPlay. So we're going to go into our Bluetooth settings and search for the Bluetooth ID, which is down here. We pair, allow favorites to sync. We should get a CarPlay prompt. We connect. And in a minute, we'll see CarPlay coming up on here. So here's the floating menu button, which does give us quick access to the volume, which is quite important for FM at least, and auxiliary potentially, as well as brightness in the night time when you're driving in the night, but also quick access to the dashboard camera as well. So connected wirelessly now to the display. It's nice and responsive. It looks okay. The colors aren't super rich and the brightness is very high at its peak. So it's not a super bright display, but in the daylight, it's actually fine. And it's going to be more than enough than you need for the evenings. The screen itself is obviously nice and responsive, taking all my touch inputs fairly well. We can try out some audio from the built-in speaker. So the Wi-Fi is pretty good actually. It's actually quite responsive on its touch input and delay. Sounds good on the speaker. It's not going to be great for music, but for narration through navigation, as well as any sort of talkie or podcast, it might be okay for that. But other than that, you really want to be using the other three options for audio output. So let's do that. Let's connect to our first audio output source. We're going to try FM first. So we're at 107.4 megahertz on our car stereo. We're going to come out of here, which you could do through the floating button, and we're going to go to our audio output. We're on speaker at the moment. We're going to go into FM, and we're going to change this to, you can use this, which is really nice to see, to lock ourselves in. So you can hear the FM frequency. It's a nice clear channel, and we're going to lock it in to 107 on the display. That's now all locked in, and we can go back to CarPlay, back into the audio. So like some previous display, you can't change the volume once you're in FM. You can only change the volume of the actual internal speaker. And I find that a little bit detrimental, because some FM, if the volume's too high, and it probably sounds like it is, the bass doesn't come across that well and it starts to wobble and it starts to distort. And I'm hearing that over FM here. The cable is fully out. I'm not getting any bass distortion as I do get on some stereos, but you do have to have the volume quite low. So not the perfect solution, but if you haven't got the other options, it's actually not too bad. FM transmission, but it will vary on your car stereo system. But generally, it's not a bad audio solution if you are limited on your car stereo. Let's do an audio test of the microphone. Hi, this is Anthony from CarPlayLife.com. This is an audio test using the CarTablet Pro Max. And this is an audio test. Okay, microphone's not too bad. I couldn't quite see where the microphone actually is. I think it's at the back of the display. Definitely not at the front or at the sides. So it does feel a little bit distant and less present, but you can hear myself. It was quite clear. I'd say that's a pass. Let's do a call test. Hello? 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 Okay, good call quality. Quality generally in the call was good, and the delay was actually very good too. So solid pass for calling. Okay, so that's FM. We're going to now try the next audio source, which is auxiliary, which means that we now have a new cable to plug into. I'd say this is just over a meter. So there is some cable management that you could do, but we'll put that into the tablet. Okay, so that's the AV cable plugged in. We can switch to auxiliary, and we're going to plug the cable into the auxiliary port in the car. That's now connected, and we can now try out the audio of auxiliary. Okay, that's a lot clearer than FM as I expect it to be. Less distortion. Again though, if you hit volume, you can't control the volume, so all the volume is going to be done through the car stereo, which I don't always prefer. But the quality is good, bass is good. It's a lot more clearer than FM. and it would be the next option if you have the auxiliary port available in your car stereo. So before we try out the Bluetooth options, we're going to try out Android Auto whilst we're in auxiliary. And to do that, we hit on Android Auto here. Now we're in Android Auto. And in Android Auto, we hit Bluetooth and then we search for the available Bluetooth display. Pair. And now we're into the display with Android Auto. And again, like CarPlay, it's a little bit washed out. It's a little bit lower in quality actually than CarPlay. But let's try the navigation generally. You can switch between the two panels. Seems to be okay. A little bit laggy. The quality isn't as sharp as CarPlay, if I'm honest. Let's try some audio. Nice fast transition for the audio, so I'm happy with that. Obviously the audio sounds good as it did with CarPlay. Let's do a call test. Hello? 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 Quite a bit of a delay on the Android Auto calling. I don't know why that's not any different to CarPlay, but considering the audio lag is a bit better in the actual platform itself, the calling is slower. So bear that in mind if you are an Android Auto user. The calling lag is a little bit more present on Android Auto. Okay, so that's Android Auto briefly in a nutshell. Works okay, looks a little bit worse than CarPlay, and the calling is a little bit delayed. So if you're an Android Auto user, I'd be a bit more hesitant in recommending this display because there are better out there. But if you are a CarPlay user, then it's a little bit much better overall, generally in all areas. Okay, so we're going to go out of this and back into the hub of the actual car stereo. We can try AirPlay. Couldn't quite get it to work with Miracast. So we're going to go onto the iPhone and then we need to connect to the Wi-Fi. The password is 1 to 8. And once connected, we can now pull down, go to AirPlay, and select on air mirroring and screen mirroring. And now we're connected to the display. Quite rapid actually. It's quite nice. Obviously, tiny little screen. I don't know why you'd want to use it in a portrait sense, but so for things like YouTube, we can go into here, multitasking and things like that. So do bear that in mind. But if you really are struggling to pay even $30 to $50 more, then okay. So the quality in lip sync is actually quite close. Definitely watchable on that sense. But if you do have a kind of iPhone Max display size, you're really not going to see. You can see I've got an iPhone 16 Pro here. You're not going to see much difference in screen real estate playing YouTube off your phone versus off the screen. So bundling this kind of feature on this type of display is a little bit irrelevant for me. Unless you do want to share the experience in the car, I wouldn't set that as a main key feature of why you would want to have this display, if I'm honest. But that's AirPlay, works well, works fairly seamlessly without any problems. The only issue is I didn't get it to work that well with Miracast, and that's Android in a nutshell. Really, I do struggle getting Android to work properly, so we're going to stop mirroring. The only other options that we've got here is Bluetooth music, which is basically if you're going to play Bluetooth across the display. Okay, we're now connected to Bluetooth. It's going to play. That's going to play through the car stereo at the volume of your phone, so that's a little bit easier to manage. And if we go into here, we do have Bluetooth music, and you can actually then manipulate the tracks that way if you don't want to use CarPlay. So the last thing, it's Wi-Fi video. So we're going to use our phone to connect to the app that you probably will need to download. Now, Vidure is a dash cam app. So this is going to allow us to connect to the dash cam functionality of the display and playback content on our phone and potentially save it as well. So we're now connected. We're going to allow, and we're going to add the camera. It's now added. We haven't got a memory card plus plugged in at the moment, but we can access the camera. Recording's paused, but you can see here the camera is now available. And from here we can play back the video, take photographs. We can actually access the files if we had a SD card plugged into it.
A few moments later.
So we've got SD card installed. We're going to now format, and now the car is now recording. Okay, so that's a dash cam all now up and running now with the SD card installed. We can take photographs. We can look back at the recorded footage on the camera, anything that we previously recorded. We've got a front and rear facing camera. So we can look and see if we need this cable to be spliced or not for power. So you've got plenty of cable there to run to the back of the display. So no camera feed on the rear view camera. So I'm assuming you will need to splice that cable in to trigger the feed because it would otherwise normally work. So up now, I'll show you a couple of test videos of the dash camera so you can see how it performs in daylight as well as nighttime. If it's like any other dash camera on the back of a display, the feed is adequate enough for recording footage from your windscreen. Bear that in mind that the camera is a little bit further away from the windscreen itself compared to more dedicated dash cams that are very close to the glass. So you will get refraction and reflection on the lens during the recording, specifically at night time as well. So they're not going to be as good as a dedicated dash cam is. But for all-in-one solution with a display and CarPlay, that's not a bad compromise to make. Okay, so we've shown you 3 of the audio options. Let's jump in the board now and the last Bluetooth audio option. Right, so we're in my Cooper board now and we're going to test out Bluetooth audio. So for that, we need to first go into audio and then we go into CarPlay Android Auto. It's not really labeled as Bluetooth, but it technically is using Bluetooth audio. But now we're into CarPlay and Bluetooth here. And then if I were to play this out now, the audio is now coming from my phone. So now we need to connect this to my car system. So in the car system, we need to go into Bluetooth, pair with our iPhone. And now we've got Bluetooth coming from the Bluetooth of my phone. Now this can just basically sit on the media screen. When we go back to the player, we can now see everything running on the display. This will be on any Bluetooth car stereo as well, not a fancy modern one like this. But if I bring yourself down to here again, you can see now we're playing back basically the same song. Whilst CarPlay audio is now coming over Bluetooth to the Bluetooth stereo in the car. Now we can see the delay. It's not that significant, performs pretty well, and the sound is nice and sharp, nice and crisp. It's digital, so it's going to sound really good because it's coming from your phone rather than through the display. But you've got the added luxury that you're actually going to be seeing the content being played onto the CarPlay display that you got mounted in the car. So this is a best of both worlds basically. You've got the best audio and you've actually got the display projecting your CarPlay or Android Auto feed. And the sound's great, totally happy with that and happy with the lag as well. The thing about Bluetooth audio is the microphone and what does it actually use to pick up the calling audio. Most of them will take the microphone audio from the phone, which means it still needs to be nearby and not in a bag or a back pocket. So let's just try that now with calling. The delay is very good as we've seen with the CarPlay. Okay, so that's good because it's using the Bluetooth from the phone. It's picking up the car microphone, which is going to be up here, and it's not necessarily taking it from the phone microphone. So that's a very good positive from that. If you've got a microphone set up in your Bluetooth car stereo, then it's going to use that microphone instead of the microphone on the actual display itself. So the quality will be just as good as the quality is in your Bluetooth car stereo. Happy days. So this CarTablet Pro Max currently retails on sale right now for $124.95 directly from their CarTablet store. And you can check out my links down below to learn more about it, support the channel and buy yourself one. Overall, a good display for CarPlay users. As we've seen, Android Auto users will encounter a few issues with not only the display quality, but also the calling lag. We've seen that FM transmission is okay, it's passable. Auxiliary is going to be a lot better if you've got that option, and Bluetooth is going to be even better still. If you've got a Bluetooth car stereo, you can connect your phone to it without any problems. You won't have any problem with using the display then with Bluetooth audio. The screen is quite good, it's very responsive, and the mounting options are okay. They're pretty much the standard that you get these days with car stereo displays. Considering its price, it's probably okay. It's not too bad. You are getting a dash cam with it as well, and you can see in this video what the quality of that dash cam is like between night and day recording. So if you don't have a dash cam currently in your car and you'd like to not only give it CarPlay and Android Auto wireless functionality, but you also like to give it a dashboard camera too, then it's a nice all-in-one solution. Sadly, you don't have that functionality of using the reverse camera without plugging it into the rear light to power it. I would like to have seen that directly connected and power sufficiently from the device itself. That would have been better without having to deal with any wires. So I can't really review what the quality of that camera would be like, but it's nice to be able to manipulate the camera and have the dash camera recording alongside the CarPlay functionality if you wanted that as an option. But you can have the dash cam footage alongside the CarPlay display, which is a nice option. It does shrink down the CarPlay display a little bit, so for things like navigation, you're viewing it with quite a smaller display screen size alongside the dash cam. Can't really manipulate the dash cam footage, but that's an option should you want that too. So if you are looking for a CarPlay display with dashcam functionality, Android Auto and CarPlay support, if you are a CarPlay user, it's definitely something I would check out, but I'd be a bit hesitant if you are using it with an Android device for Android Auto. Okay, that's it. I hope you found this video helpful. If it has, give us a thumbs up and let me know down below if you have any questions about this Pro Max display from CarTablet. I'll do my best to answer them. You can support this channel with a super thanks, along with a comment or question, or buy me a coffee. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the new year with lots more content for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Cheers. Bye.